Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I like to begin discussing the new Brexit impositions appearing in 2022, starting with the extra checks on all UK travellers into the Schengen area of the EU, including, of course, France. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, actually, a bit of an aside, first of all, I saw it was an interview. So a member of the government was speaking. It might have been a junior minister, and they were saying they were very pleased that such and such a person had said at the moment it's very difficult to disentangle the damage we're suffering, the economic damage caused by Brexit, and that's caused by COVID. I remember thinking, so you're admitting that Brexit's causing damage now, are you? Because that's funny, because I seem to remember there were people telling us that there wouldn't be any damage from Brexit. Who was that again? Oh yes, the government. But of course there is. And you also may think that, many people may think that, well, you know, we had Brexit and yes, it's really bad. And I'm sure it's really terribly bad until we rejoin again. But we've had Brexit and yes, it's continuing. But looking ahead to 2022, we'll start to take the edges off it. And it'll get better. And it's certainly not going to get worse or anything like that, because we've had Brexit. We've got all the Brexit now. We just need to learn to deal with it. No, we haven't had it all. There's more coming. And I suppose the first thing to point out related to this particular topic with the new checks is when I say these extra checks on EU travellers, which weren't in place this year, they're coming next year, entering Schengen areas, I should be clear and say that what I actually mean is checks that will apply to non-EU citizens. The same checks will apply to people from the US, Canada and so on. It's not picking on us. And that's an important point, because you can tell immediately what's going to happen when these checks are eventually applied. The EU are taking punitive action against the British out of spite at our decision to leave them. That's what the Tory press will complain. In reality, these rules, which actually will be genuinely new rules, were coming into force with or without Brexit. Like, let's say we decided to remain in the EU after all by, not voting to give a large parliamentary majority to a clown, then these rules would still be coming into play in 2022. Exactly the same rules. It's just that, like a lot of these supposedly spiteful EU rules, they wouldn't have applied to us. EU citizens are exempt, you see, whether or not they are from a Schengen country. They will not, for example, apply to Irish passport holders. They're not in Schengen, but they won't have to suffer these checks either. So, little tip, if you're eligible for an Irish passport and you're British, get one. There were already enough reasons to do so, but next year there'll be even more. See, despite what Brexiteers would have you believe, the EU maintains border controls. Rather better than we do, frankly, and that even includes Schengen borders. In fact, I suppose it's especially important for Schengen borders, because Schengen, for those who are not sure, is the large freedom of movement area in Europe, like proper freedom of movement area, that comprises most, not all, but most EU countries, and includes a few non-EU countries, Iceland, Switzerland, Norway. So obviously, if movement is free inside the region, you need to be a bit clear about who's passing into it from outside, don't you? Stands to reason. So from next year, a new biometric test system effectively is coming into effect for non-EU citizens. They've been trialling it, I think, in Spain and Bulgaria for travelling into the Schengen area. The purpose is to make border control more effective. Something Brexit supporters should be quietly appreciative of. I say quietly appreciative because I don't think they'll be all that impressed when it starts to apply to them. The good news for them, however, is that there have been some problems with the system, and I gather it's going to be delayed. See, it was supposed to be coming in next spring. I get the impression that next summer or even autumn is more realistic. But when it does come in, biometric scan as you come in is obviously something that takes longer than a quick flash of your passport. Like for holidaymakers or business travellers, it's going to mean longer queues at border control. Because obviously, if every check is now going to take longer, even if it's like a little bit longer, a few seconds longer for a person means for like a few hundred people, the person at the back is delayed a bit. So we've got a lot of people who leave the UK via France, which is a Schengen nation. So longer queues to get out of the country. But think what this is going to mean for lorry drivers. The concern is that it means leaving their cabs. They have to physically leave their cabs and go over to somewhere to be checked out. And people discussing the issues have brought up the Operation Yellowhammer figure of, for a 2-minute delay for each lorry, that means 17 miles of tailbacks at Dover. It means Operation Stack coming back, but permanently, which is the system they use for holding lorries to try and prevent the roads getting completely seized up. Of course, we already have significant time-wasting measures for lorry drivers with Brexit. Paperwork needs to be checked, which takes time. The government's solution to this was to have pre-prepared documents filed electronically to be checked in advance. Lorries would sit in one of their new lorry parks dotted all around Kent, which the Tory and Brexit voting public didn't seem all that happy about for some reason, and then directed to move towards the port when they'd received their clearance and they were ready for them. So it didn't actually solve the problem of Brexit trade barriers. It still meant long delays for lorry drivers moving goods between Britain and the EU compared to before Brexit, when it took a few seconds. But it did at least stop the roads being gridlocked. These new measures would be different. See, without a bespoke system to manage the issue, the biometric scanning is going to have to be carried out by French authorities at the ports themselves, most usually Dover. You know, people having to get out of their vehicles to carry out these checks is going to take time. 2 minutes equates to 17 miles of tailbacks. Not that I'm suggesting this will happen, because you can tell what the obvious solution would be. In my mind anyway, I'm not an expert, but I would be thinking, keep the lorries in their lorry parks for even longer. If the time it takes to process a lorry increases, you're going to have to let fewer approach the port per hour, aren't you? This is assuming that a different system can't be arranged, of course, but I'm not hearing of any. And also, any system that can be arranged will require the UK and EU authorities to work closely together in order to come to effective solutions. Doesn't really sound like the Brexit negotiations that have been taking place so far. Too much incompetence and political interference has blighted the British approach to the problems of Brexit that they are far more keen on hiding than solving. So when this system finally comes online, and we can thank our lucky stars that it will not be coming online as soon as originally planned, there are going to be even longer delays. Now, we are an island. I feel I need to point that out in case Dominic Raab is watching. Although actually he did recently learn of this fact, to be fair. Our geological makeup doesn't really lend itself to just creating new ports or just expanding the current ones. We have what we have. If you slow down the ingress and egress through these ports, that means one of three things has to happen. One, you increase the times available for this travel to take place. Well, the travel was happening 24/7, so you can't really do that there. You can't increase the opening hours, it's already open all the time. Secondly, you could expand the number of lanes, so to speak, that you have for this travel. You can't do that, again, can't expand. Or third, you accept that you will not be able to get as many lorries through the ports per unit of time, per hour, say. And it's this third one that is the inevitable consequence of not being able to compensate for delays with some sort of expansion of time or space. So we already have less trade right now, not just because the trade barriers make EU trade less competitive, that is a factor, but also because there's a whole host of transport issues, not least of which delays at borders. If we increase those delays further, without anywhere else to release the pressure, that's just going to result in even less trade being able to take place. There is a reason why the UK was at the forefront of pushing for the European single market. It was massively in our interest to do so. But like I say, it's likely to be delayed. It might have been interesting to see what holidaymakers next summer would have made of the system, to say nothing of logistics firms. But if it isn't implemented now until after, say, next summer, the holidaymakers will largely get away with it until 2023. But as the biggest related problem is going to be for trade, I can't help think Say this system comes online, we don't know when it's going to come online, but let's say it comes online next September or October. Might be sooner, but let's say it comes out then. That means that a currently largely unfamiliar system that is going to cause more delays, even when it's all up and running properly, because people will be unfamiliar, and it'll cause delays even when you're not. It's going to start to be used just as trade starts to accelerate ahead of the festive period. In fact, the delay could mean that this system arrives at right about the worst possible time for British exporters. Because whatever extra delays are inherent in the system, surely there'll be even greater delays while people are getting used to it. What, for example, will the government do to make sure that all hauliers are fully up to speed with the process? What are they going to do to allow the French border authorities to manage their checks as quickly and efficiently and easily as possible? On past performance, probably very little. They may even hinder the process. But that's just one more Brexit barrier coming our way in 2022. There are others, and some of them coming sooner, which I'll be covering as this final month of 2021 rolls merrily on. But until then, those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.